to me, racism and judging people by their body, for whatever reason, is not only grotesque, it's bloody stupid. It's ridiculous. We are consciousness having an experience of a reality through the vehicle to experience that reality. And once you start judging people by the nature of their vehicle, it's a bit like being prejudiced against a guy in a spacesuit because it's a different color to yours and was made by a different manufacturer somewhere else in the world. Madness. But that's what racism is. It's stupidity and a complete misunderstanding of self, life, and everything. And racism is not something you are born with. It's something that is developed through programmed ignorance and prejudice. You put children of different colours and backgrounds together, little babies, and they'll get on fine. But you put them together as adults a few decades later, and they might not get on fine at all. But they might be going to war with each other, might be prejudiced against each other. And if you are born, for instance, into a Jewish family, into a Muslim family, or into a Christian family, you are far more likely to follow the religion of Judaism or the religion of Islam or the religion of Christianity than you are if you're not born into those families. And in the same way, if you are brought up in a community that is prejudiced or a family that's prejudiced on the basis of race, then you are far more likely to be racist yourself in the same way. It's all programming. It's all reality downloading. So let's get that out of the way first of all.
None of the black tribes had any written language. They had not invented the wheel. They did not ride horses. They did not have cities or anything that was of any use. They used to pick up their huts when they'd grazed the area flat, fold their little huts up, put them over their back, and go and look for the next patch of green grass.
Haiti is a hellhole, and what happened there is they overthrew their French overseers, took over, and created a nightmare. Every time there's a problem down there, the United States goes and donates all kinds of food and everything. And I have not seen anywhere in the world where you have a black country that is successful. Now you look at South Africa, the whites who control that nation gave over power to Nelson Mandela, a communist, and they took that successful country and destroyed it. I have never, ever heard of a black-ruled nation that has done very well. Even parts of the United States that are black-ruled do not fare very well. The problem with what we've seen with black people is that many of them, I don't think, can exist under the kind of European governance structures that you find in the United States and in Europe itself. They do better in a hellhole like many parts of Africa and Haiti. It seems to be their way. They are the people that live on the second floor and will gladly burn the floor that they're on, disregarding that they're going to crash through the floor and fall to their deaths. We don't have in the United States so much a problem with people hating blacks because of their race. It is an objection to a dismal culture of misery and failure that most black people love, and they want to pull everybody down because they are not able to achieve standards for performance that whites deem to be just natural and normal. You look at the United States and all the politically correct crap, all this stuff about doing for the black race. You have a philosophy come in, and it's an anti-common sense, anti-life philosophy, and it destroys everything. And we're seeing that happen here. These are the so-called civil rights acts that were supposed to do something good, and they're not. They're a nightmare. It's opened up the portals to hell.
Remember, I started off by saying they call me a racist and I was a member of civil rights. Later, I taught for 8 years in a black university, and one day I roared at the crowd. I said, I am so sick at what I did in civil rights. I said, I helped to plant the tree of civil rights. I wasn't a big player. I was a minor player, a two-bit player, but I helped to plant it. And we had a dream that one day black students such as yourself would be excellent citizens and excellent scholars. I said, you're here for a free ride and a fine time until you get a certificate from here so you can get a job, so you can get a better car, so you can get better sex. I says, you make me sick. You don't care about learning. You don't care about knowledge. All you care about is a good time. I said, I feel like I wasted my time in civil rights. this quality of students I saw at the university I taught was a black university. I asked the department head, I said, you went to school here, right? I says, what was the caliber of students when you were here? He says, well, they weren't what they are now. I says, these are dreadful. I says, they don't care, they don't know, and they don't want to learn. He says, yep.
There's actually a good quote here from Alan West, who's a black politician in the United States. He said, black people kill more black people every 6 months than the KKK did in 86 years. There was a report that was compiled in 2005 called the Color of Crime Report. It shows that blacks are 7 times more likely than other people of other races to commit murder and 8 times more likely to commit robbery. The single best indicator of violent crime levels in an area is the percentage of population that is black and Hispanic. Blacks are an estimated 39 times more likely to commit a violent crime against a white person than vice versa, and 136 times more likely to commit robbery. Blacks commit more violent crime against whites than against blacks. 45% of their victims are white, 43% are black, and 10% are Hispanic. When whites commit violent crimes, only 3% of their victims are black. And one of the very telling statistics here is the amount of rape against white women from black men. And it shows that something like an average of 34,000 white women are sexually assaulted or raped by black men each year. And a lot of authorities think that this figure is at least twice the number reported. And if you look at the reverse, which is how many white men are raping black women, it's statistically zero.
Oh, well, in Africa, rape is really common. One of the responses I got was, oh, Africans don't all believe in rape. Yes, they do. It's so normal. They'll talk about it in an interview as if what the situations are of them raping. So, like, a lot of this also is just no race realism, no understanding.
They're trying to apply their idea of values on this foreign culture that they know nothing about. They're just so naive about it.
Yes, that's another trait distinct to Euripides is projection. It seems like it's easier to get Euripides to project than any other group. A lot of people aren't meant for civilization. For example, Africa. They've never made or sustained a civilization in all of known history, like sub-Saharan African. And
there, I've traveled through there and I've met, women in Africa and I've had this conversation there. They don't even really respect the family unit. The guys just they impregnate a lot and they just kind of run around. It's more wild, Well,
yeah, because they're meant for a state of natural selection. They're meant for the wild. Most people don't realize that Africans have mud huts. They never invented the wheel. They never invented ships. And they didn't even have a written language in many parts. None with abstract thinking. Africans, there's nothing you can do to actually make them civilizable. I mean, other than high levels of admixture, which is going to create atavistic revolt and them hating white people for not being part of them. That's the other hard part, actually, is the few high-functioning ones that are propped up and everyone, is all into these different high-functioning Negroes. They're not the average, and they also use their admixture to champion the primitives. It's not necessarily a good thing. But yeah, there's nothing you could do to make Africans not primitive. There's no amount of eugenics that's going to change that. It took tons of environmental factors over thousands and thousands and thousands of years, probably way longer than that.
Do you think black South Africans have shown gratitude to whites for funding their education and health systems for so long, over many decades, and doing so much for their education and giving them bursaries and so on? And I said, no, I can't recall a single incident where any black leader expressed gratitude for that. They just think that they're entitled to it and they're not receiving enough. Well, there's something for nothing is what motivates them, definitely. You'll also find, especially in Africa, that there's a problem with causal reasoning. For example, you've got a businessman or industrialist built up a whole empire through hard work, or maybe invented something, patented it, and generated some wealth from that. They won't see the cause between his wealth and his work and intellectual achievements. They will simply see it as a pocket of wealth that's there and that needs to be shared with others. And they don't see any connection between their own poverty and some of their own social problems. They simply see this as an unfortunate that they've been dealt a bad hand, that fate has given them, they were born in the wrong place, and therefore they now need to go to the good place.
Racism is a wonderful institution that should be rejuvenated and inculcated in schools. It is the last barrier to global homogenization and represents the default position of 99% of humanity over 99% of historical time. a natural and indeed necessary sentiment, racism is just one method for people to evaluate others in accord with their genetic value. Without racism, the world would today be dominated by Neanderthals, or by the class of people who mostly inhabit sub-Saharan Africa. Civilization requires the leadership of society's best people. Those areas governed by less advanced demographics fall quickly into barbarism, as we see in so many places. In normal times, racism is so universally experienced that historians hardly bother to call attention to it. It's only in diseased and perverted eras, like our own, that elites rail against this ineradicable and precious human attribute.